In this video, I want to talk about the importance of long-term planning when it comes to college, going to college. And so in our life skills discussion this week, let's talk about an aspect of attending college that you can start right away. This is where we're talking about, what we're talking about is the issue of generals. They call them generals or general education courses. Getting a college degree most times requires taking courses which are called generals. Communications, history, psychology, sociology. So even if you want to be an engineer, for example, and you go to certain colleges, you have to take courses in those fields. Now, I understand the approach. The idea is to help you to be well-rounded. That's the terminology. People talk about getting a liberal arts education. We want you to be an engineer that also is aware of history and aware of how to communicate in certain ways and how to give talks. Now, these things, there's debates, I would say, right? And we're talking about critical thinking, so let's throw in some debates. There are people who would argue that I don't need to take theater appreciation if I just want to be a medical doctor, right? And there's some people that would argue that. And I understand where the colleges are coming from, and I understand where the people are coming from. But here's where I will go with this. Due to the high levels of student loan problems in America, due to the fact that we have student loan debt to deal with, it seems to me that if you are paying for college yourself, you haven't taken out student loans, and you're trying to minimize how much money you might have to borrow, I highly recommend that you consider taking CLEP exams, or CLEP tests they're called, for any of the generals that you can just CLEP out of so you don't have to take them. So for example, there's one on U.S. history, right? You can study for the CLEP test and take the CLEP test. Now, if you're going to be a history major, then it makes sense to actually go to college, study all the history. You can still take CLEP tests for the history for the first 2 levels of history, but then of course you have to attend classes to learn all the other aspects of the history that you plan to learn. So I recommend that you consider looking at CLEP tests as an option instead of taking those generals in a college, or take those generals at a community college. Again, this is if you want to avoid taking out student loans or taking out more than you need to take out. Ideally, I want to encourage you to go to college without any debt, work as you go through college, and do what you need to do there. Now, some people go to certain colleges because they like the color of the building of the dorms or something. It's like, realistically speaking, that does not affect your education. The color of the dorms or the residence halls does not affect whether or not you become the next rocket scientist from Wisconsin or Minnesota, etc. You need to just focus on what is at hand. It's not about any sort of atmosphere. Again, I get it. People want to do some of those things. But I want to tell you a story that might help you sort of see the context. I understand we're in 2 different countries here because I'm going to compare us to people in Nigeria for a second. When I graduated high school, when I graduated high school, I applied to a few colleges in Nigeria. And the way it works there is that you get 2 options, and then you sometimes will have to take a standardized test first of all, but then they started a program where you had to then go to that university to take another standardized test. And then guess what? Several things can happen. Number 1, they might say, well, we've met our quota, we're not going to take any more students. Number 2, they can tell you, we know you applied to study A, B, or C, which, by the way, you couldn't go in undeclared. You had to declare a major. But sometimes they would change your major, right? You might say you want to become a doctor, and they would change it to a biology, for example. Now, in Nigeria, they don't use a pre-med system. They just use a straight up, you go in as a student in medicine. That's it. And that's the program they use. But the point I'm trying to make is, we have a lot of people in Nigeria who apply to get into schools, who meet all the criteria. But guess what? Sometimes they have to wait for a year or 2, right? So once they get into any university, sometimes you see people get into any university, and that's it. They're like, this is great. My life is in order. I've gotten into the university I want to get. I've gotten into a university. It doesn't matter. Now, some of these universities, unfortunately, don't have resources for students who are in the sciences. They don't have labs. They don't have labs that work well, I should say. But these students are excited, and they still go, and they work hard. The point I'm trying to make, my friends, is, well, let's take a step back. And this is especially speaking to parents in a sense. I understand that people might want to go to a college because there's a sort of legacy they want to continue. But if you have to borrow $60,000 to go to a college, I don't think it's the best route to go, especially if you're going to be using some of that to pay for history or psychology 1, which you could have clept out of. I highly recommend that you consider clepping. What are you doing in the summers? What are you doing, in between high school and college? Can you clep out of a few courses? That will be helpful in the long run. You will still get to take some other classes on the college campus, but I really want you to think about these things as you consider college, as this is one way to cut down on cost. If you have questions on clep testing or these ideas I'm talking about, let me know. But generally speaking, any college in America, almost any college, will help you get the work done and getting some things covered. So if you want to go to a cheaper college where you can pay more as you go, that would be the best route. But again, it's your decision. I'm just giving you some ideas and things to think about, and then also introducing you to the CLEP exam, which you can start studying for also if you want. Thank you for your time, and I hope you consider just what you can do to prepare as you go on with your education. Have a wonderful day.